Finebaum Show. And now, Paul Finebaum.
Oh, he lied to you. The big voice guy lied to you right off the bat. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Paul Finebaum Show without Fed host Paul Finebaum. I'm Peter Burns, SEC Network studio host, holding it down, but I can't do it alone. Like Ryan McGee. Ryan McGee did a great job, senior writer for ESPN Magazine, last couple days doing it. He's talented. I'm not nearly as much so I got to bring in a little help. Bring in former SEC legend, my partner in crime, and a man that's getting close to making it on the senior PGA Tour. My man Booger McFarland.
Be careful.
My man Booger McFarland joining me here for the next 4 hours. Boog, you can qualify for it. You're there. You're not that far away from it.
I can qualify in game, but you got to be 50, dude. I'm only 37.
You're 30. You're not. I did not know that. I thought you were at least 46, 47 years old. Hey, we're gonna have some fun. That's what I told Booger before we started the show today, is that we're not owning the Paul Finebaum Show. All we did was put a deposit here. We're kind of renting it for 3 days. So as long as we don't put any holes in the wall or anything like that, we might get asked back. So locked and loaded for the next 3 days with us here. And, of course, your phone calls are always welcome, 855-242-7285. That's 855-242-PAUL. But some of the different headlines we got to get into today. Boogie came out, SEC Media Days. Obviously, we will both be there in a couple days out in Birmingham. But the full list of players came out, so we're going to dive into that because I think there's a little bit of lack of star power that we have that we need to address. And then the DeAndre Johnson story continues to kind of float around in this college football, and I would just say sports world. We're going to dive into that as well, too. And former Tennessee Volunteer stud, you saw him play for the Tennessee Titans and a little bit for the Washington Redskins, Albert Hainsworth wrote a letter to his former self. So I want to get Boog's thoughts on that and your guys' thoughts as well. But, Boog, I teed it up for you, man. Where are we starting the Paul Finebaum Show at today?
I think we started Media Days. Media Days start on Monday. We're going to get there Sunday. And I think when you look at the players that were announced that are going to be there, I think the first thing that jumps out to both of us, especially me, is not only the lack of star power, but the lack of star power at the quarterback position. And I think for the first time in a while, the SEC is kind of going to get back to being what it's supposed to be in my eyes, which is a conference that's built around running backs and built around defense. And I think that's going to be kind of accentuated by the lack of star power at the quarterback position. Nothing against Dak Prescott and Josh Dobbs, but this is a conference right now that's not deep at the quarterback position.
So you're looking at 14 schools times 3 players, right? Every single school gets 3 players. So you do the math, that's 42. I used my little calculator on the iPhone to make sure that was right, and it was correct. But now you're only looking at, 5 quarterbacks this year. And the 5 quarterbacks this year, you got Brandon Allen for Arkansas, who, Boog, you're high on right now. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Johnson, the Auburn Tigers. I'm going through the list as well. You got Dobbs. You also got Matty Mock, and you got Dak Prescott. 5 of the 14 quarterbacks across this conference are going to be representing their school, respectively, at SEC Media Days. But going back even to last year, when a lot of people thought the SEC had fallen off a little bit, 4 QBs last year. I mean, this is – I'm still continue to struggle with how the conference has had all the success. It's always at the ESPN top 300 recruits, yet continues to struggle when you're talking about bringing the talented quarterbacks, at least for the Dog and Pony Show, which is SEC Media Days.
I think you can look at it a couple different ways, PB. One is that it's the advent of the spread offense from a high school level, and so the form which college coaches have to choose from is a specific type. If you're not running a spread or a specific type of offense, then you're going to be limited when you bring in the high school quarterbacks. Now, also, when you get into the SEC, I don't care what anybody says. Like, you can talk about the SEC like it's this high-powered, high-octane offensive conference. No, it's not. The SEC is a conference that has been, and in my mind is always going to be built around running the football and defense. Okay, you need your quarterback to be adequate. You don't need him to be great. Case in point, look at Alabama last year. Blake Sims was very, very, very good last year, but Blake Sims didn't even get drafted. He's not a guy that's going to light the world up at the quarterback position, but he was adequate enough to get the football to Amari Cooper almost on every play so Alabama could be successful. But the SEC, PB, and everybody out there listening, this is a conference that is still built on stopping people defensively, and you have to have a running game of some sort. Now, you can do the running game unconventionally through the spread, but you have to be physical at the line of scrimmage.
And you're starting to look at teams like Mississippi State with what Dak and Dan Mullen, who's going to be joining us on the Finebaum Show a little bit later in the program, have done. You look at what Butch Jones and those guys are doing in Knoxville with Josh Dobbs. You're talking about still getting the rushing yards, but just not exactly getting it through 3 yards in a cloud of dust, just turning around and handing it off. But Booger, what's to me, I'm almost more concerned on the different way. You're saying that you're concerned about being able to stop the ball, but without having good quality play from the offense, as far as from your quarterback position, how important is it to have that defense? Because right now we've seen at least teams advance when the defensive side of it is not, frankly, very good. Look at what Auburn's been able to do lately.
Well, the quarterback position, people call it the most important position in football. I think it's the most important position, especially in pro football. On the collegiate level, you just need your guy to be adequate, okay? You need your guy to make sure that he doesn't turn the football over, that he throws the football to the right person during the right time.
Don't lose
convert on third down. Exactly. You don't need a quarterback to be Cody Kessler where he's, throwing for 3,000, 4,000 yards. You don't need that in this conference, and I think it's been proven. I give you a prime example, PB. Jeremy Johnson came in and played one half for Auburn last year against Arkansas, and right now we think he's the best passer in the conference, and we've only seen him for one half. Why? Because this conference is not used to seeing the ball thrown around at a high level. Now, I know Johnny Manziel did it a little bit, but for the most part, you got to line up and physically run the football, and I think Texas A&M is a case in point. For as much as they throw the football around, they're one of the softest teams I've ever seen on both lines of scrimmage, okay? It's because the mentality that they have is not a physical nature. And so as good as Kyle Allen may be this year, until they develop the tenacity on both sides of the line of scrimmage, it's going to be hard for them to win. Auburn,
you're saying that they're just more of that finesse team?
Yeah.
Is that they just don't have the punch you in the face and kick you when you're down mentality? That it's because I don't know if I see that out of a Sumlin, at least on the facade of what Kevin Sumlin brings. And now you got John Chavis, who's coming in as the defensive coordinator. I don't see them being a soft team because we'll have Greg McElroy on the show later today, and he was talking about he thought that might be one of the more physical teams he's seen, at least in the spring lately. But you're saying that's got to change back from what it was in the last 2 years?
Well, if you look at it, their quarterbacks, and we're talking about the star power at the quarterback position and the lack thereof in this conference, they've had quarterbacks that can throw the football. I mean, Johnny Manziel, Kenny the Thrill or Trill, whatever his little 3 games of fame was. I mean, he had his little run there, and now you bring in Kyle Allen. Like, they've had people to throw the football. But what has Texas A&M struggled to do? They couldn't stop a nosebleed from a defensive running standpoint. And I think it's a direct reflection of the mentality that they have. I don't care what you look like in the spring. What are you going to do when Alabama, LSU, Mississippi State, Auburn is on the other side of the field? That's what I want to see from Texas A&M. They have got to be able to stop the run. And when your quarterback is throwing for as many yards as Manziel and Hill and Allen is thrown for, it limits what you can do in the run game and the mentality that you have, PB.
Well, we're going to be talking about that. One of the social media aspect of the Paul Finebaum Show we have today is, and we're not going to just put it to SEC. We're going to do it to all of college football. Is hashtag CFB player trades. So college football player trades. For instance, John Hayes, producer extraordinaire here of the Finebaum Show, broke out earlier. Alabama trading Derrick Henry for J.T. Barrett of Ohio State. Because what, Boog? They got like 9 different quarterbacks that can all play over at Ohio State. And Alabama just goes out there and just picks a guy in a jersey and says, okay, you're going to run for 1,000 yards. You're a 6-star recruit. We got it. would that be a trade that Bama fans would go for? Derrick Henry for J.T. Barrett. So you can hit us up on Twitter using hashtag CFB football trades. Our Twitter account, it's at Peter Burns ESPN and at, what is yours? At SEC Booger, is that correct, Boog?
Of course. I mean, what else would it be?
I'm just making sure. It is Booger and Burns filling in for the Paul Finebaum Show. We're also going to be taking some of your calls as well. 855-242-7285 or 855-242-PAUL as well. Peter Burns, SEC Network host, and Booger McFarland, SEC Network analyst, in Booger and Burns for Paul Finebaum.
Call Finebaum now. 855-242-7285. That's 855-242-PAUL. This is the Paul Finebaum Show.
Hi, I'm Joan.
Bono's this, Bono's that, but I guess, what is going to get into it, play karaoke. It's Peter Burns, the SEC Network, filling in for Mr. Paul Finebaum and the other talent, the real talent, Mr. Booger McFarland. Booger, do you know all the words to Tribe Called Quest scenario? Could you do it right now?
No, I couldn't do it. Listen, understand this. I may be 37, but I'm not really like that rap guy, even at the old school. I'm a lover, man. I'm Earth, Wind and Fire. I'm Gap Band. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of guy I am. I'm not all this, here we go, what's this? I don't listen, man. Come on, baby.
Now you start to sound like my old man. You know this rap music and those guys and the dances and, come on, Boog. You're the kind of guy that plays golf and puts the speaker on. You're in good shape. You'll play a little Juvenile. You're fine. You'll work out.
Yeah, I'll do all that, but I'm not trying to do the whip and the nay-nay and all that stuff, man. I'm trying to, sit back and how you want to do it if your back's not on the wall type guy,
Well, there you go. And we'll leave the whip and the nay-nay for Paul. And that's actually why Paul's on vacation. He actually had a back injury doing the whip and the nay-nay down at the beach. So Peter Burns for the SEC Network, studio host, and Booger McFarland, studio analyst. And a couple things we've been talking about, SEC Media Days right around the corner in Birmingham. We're getting pumped up. And so Booger and I, before the show, we're trying to start thinking about some of the different, if there's only 5 quarterbacks going, only 5 SEC schools said, hey, my quarterback right here, right now, is going to be my representative over at SEC Media Days. So we started thinking about, some of the different trades that we'd like to see in college football and that fans like to see. So we used a hashtag on Twitter, hashtag CFB player trades, on some of the different trades that have come in. Like I said, LSU right now would do Dak Prescott for 2 4-star recruits to be named later. Now, not 5-star recruits. Those will be pick protected, like the NBA, Booger. Like not the 5-star guys, but 2 4-star guys. Who would say no to that trade?
Well, listen, I think the Dak Prescott trade is intriguing because obviously everybody's enamored with what he did last year. He was a Heisman Trophy candidate. He had Mississippi State ranked number 1 in the country for several weeks. And here's my only knock against Dak now. I mean, Dak was great. He threw 11 picks last year. 8 of those were against SEC competition. And he struggled a little bit once the SEC schedule got started. So although we look at Dak, and I think there are a lot of schools in the conference, namely probably LSU and Alabama, that would trade for him, I don't know if my stock is quite as high as others is.
But then at the same time, LSU needs something above average, and we haven't seen it from Anthony Jennings or Brandon Harris yet. And with how much Mississippi State lost as well too, be able to quote rebuild like NFL franchise do. But I know a lot of people down in Stark Vegas don't feel like it's a rebuilding year. We'll talk about that coming up a little more with Dan Mullen on the program. But let's go to the phone lines where first we'll go with Bob from Pike Road, Alabama. Bob, you got a player trade. What's going on, man?
Hey, guys, thanks for taking my call.
Got it.
Hey, I think that would be a negative a trade for Alabama for them to trade Derrick Henry to Ohio State for J.T. Barrett for two reasons. The first one is Alabama's recipe for success when they won, and one being won the national title under Saban, has been to have a hard-nosed, knock you off the football offensive line with two or three running backs that can come off tackle, and in the mold of Derrick Henry, in the mold of Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram, Eddie Lacy. And it's not to have this phenomenal quarterback that can sit there and throw for 4,000 or 5,000 yards, and you know, the ball manager quarterback who can make sure he takes care of the football, doesn't turn it over, and make sure that he leads the offense and hands the ball to that running back and have a run-based offense is Alabama's recipe. So I think that's the number one reason why we shouldn't make that trade. And the second one is Derrick Henry is a Heisman finalist. I'm not finalist, preseason Heisman, getting preseason Heisman hype, and while J.T. Barrett is a great quarterback, no question, Alabama is extremely thin at the running back position. All we have is Kenyon Drake, Derrick Henry, and the true freshman Damian Harris from Kentucky, who can come in and contribute a little bit. So trading one of our two main experienced running backs is not a recipe for success, in my judgment. What do you think?
Bob, I appreciate the phone call. That is kind of funny too, though, Boog, right? Whenever Bama calls in, and it's like, we're kind of thin, and the two guys that you named are you know, the three guys that you named, even with the recruit coming in, are arguably three of the top 50 running backs in the entire country. Because that's why we bring up Ohio State's quarterback, right? Because of how deep they are at that program.
Well, Ohio State's very deep at the quarterback position. I mean, they arguably have three starting quarterbacks, and obviously only one of them can have the football. But I think the caller brings up a good point, though. Derrick Henry is going to be the workhorse back for Alabama this year. Kenyon Drake's coming off that horrible ankle injury. And then after that, you know, Bo Scarborough, he got injured in the spring. Tyron Jones was dismissed from the football team. Yeah, you got Damian Harris coming in as a freshman, but we don't quite know what he's going to be. So for the first time in a long time, PB, Alabama is a little thin at the running back position, especially if they can't stay healthy. So I don't know if they really want to trade away one of those guys.
Well, then you start looking at and this is probably the biggest issue that Tide fans know about. And the thing about Alabama, too, as well, that everybody in the country goes ahead and looks at their schedule and says, what is Bama dealing with? What is Auburn dealing with? What is LSU dealing with? What are some of the cream of the crop schools out in the SEC dealing with? And when you look at that Bama schedule this year, that's as nasty of a schedule that's out there. It is as hard as anything right now that any of the schools will go ahead and have to get into. All right, let's get another phone call in here. Will, we're talking college football, college player trades here on the Paul Finebaum Show. What do you got, man?
Hey, guys.
What's up, man?
Yeah, man, Booger was, thanks for taking my call, and Booger was dead on. He's one of my Tigers. Gotta love Booger, man. Yeah, he's right on. We don't need a running quarterback. We got Fournette and Williams back there for that. We need a guy like Kessler. So my thing was Malachi Dupree and a 5-star next year for Cody Kessler.
All right, Boog, you taking that? If you're Les Miles right now and you're the GM of the LSU Tigers, you pulling the trigger on that? You're taking that Malachi Dupree off of that squad?
In a heartbeat. I can get a receiver. LSU has proven over the years, I mean, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Malachi Dupree, Traven Durrell. I can go on and on. I mean, and John Diarse. I mean, they have receivers down there in Baton Rouge. Name me the last all-SEC quarterback that LSU's had. What, Tommy Hodson? I mean, you got to go back to the 80s to get Tommy Hodson, maybe?
I mean, even Jamarcus, but Jamarcus didn't necessarily have the full team necessarily around him to go ahead and get it done. I mean, you go to Rohan Davey, the best quarterbacks there for LSU were Matt Flynn and Matty Mock, who weren't exactly necessarily fleet of foot and going to put up Brady numbers anytime soon. I think.
But to your point, though, PB, with Mock and Flynn there, LSU was able to compete. And especially with Mark, win a national championship, okay? Because you didn't need the quarterback. I mean, if you think about that Spears team that beat Oklahoma, Mark wasn't the greatest quarterback. They lined up, and I think what the score was 21-14. It was a defensive football game, running game, and defense. And it's amazing. And people always said people call me old school and I'm a blue blood and all that, just because I'm not jumping on the whole advent of this new SEC conference that's built on offense and speed. The SEC has been, it is, and will always be built on the ability to stop people and play defense, and the ability to run the football. I don't care who you talk to.
Or the inability to do so in what we saw in the college football playoff when Alabama showed up and Ohio State showed them in that incredible comeback. 855-242-PAUL. We'll go back to the phone lines. Jim in Atlanta, what's going on, man?
Hey, guys. I know this is off the topic, but I don't know what the topic's going to be when I called in. I was watching, of all things, TMZ on television today, and they played that thing with DeAndre Johnson no less than 7 times, so I was able to really watch close and define what went on there. And I'm guessing you guys have been in a crowded bar before, and when you want to get a drink at the bar, what you do when there's a crowd there, the way you position your body and so on without harming other people. And this guy, instead of turning his body parallel to the bar, he turned perpendicular to the bar, and he was shoving into this female who had her back to him from the shoulder blades all the way down to the above her waistline with his right arm and the right of his body, and he was 200-plus pounds. And then she moves her head around to say something to him, obviously about that. And so about that time, this other female leaves the bar to the left of that female who was sitting on the bar stool, and it gives DeAndre Johnson plenty of room to get in there. But instead of stepping to his left and filling that space, he continues to push on this female to the right instead of moving to the left. And so when he gets in there, then he moves his body again perpendicular to the bar and is in her face, and he's leaning into her, and then he takes his left arm and grabs her right arm. So he made the first contact right there, and then he's leaning into her some more. He's bullying her is what he's doing. He's using his physical size to bully her because she objected to what he did the first to her back.
Well, and Jim, what's the point here?
The point is that all this stuff that's being reported that I'm hearing, even these idiots on TMZ sitting there watching the video 7 times and then have selective eyesight, then he grabs her arm and he's leaning into her some more, and then she takes her left arm, the back of it, as he's leaning into her to keep him from doing that. That's the only real initial contact she had. And then he punches her out.
Well, and here's the deal. And he's no longer a member of the Florida State Seminoles team. And listen, I don't think there's enough hours in the day that we can talk about what FSU has dealt with and what may or may not have been found over the long time. Booger, I'm more concerned about Jim watching TMZ 7 times is honestly where I come out on that whole conversation. I mean, the Zapruder film breakdown of the punch. But you know what? It does lead to an interesting discussion on the difference that college players face now and the scrutiny that they have now than they've ever faced before, that they've ever had a chance. And Booger, now that you're 47 years old, so we're going to go back in there back in your playing days of what that's like. So we'll get back into that discussion on the other side. 855-242-PAUL. It is Peter Burns, the SEC Network studio anchor, and Booger McFarland filling in. Booger and Burns for the Paul Finebaum Show.
Call Finebaum now. 855-242-7285. That's 855-242-PAUL. This is the Paul Finebaum Show.
This is the...
You can see see Booger McFarland just breaking it down right now. Of course, you can't see him. You can hear him. He's kind of doing it, shuffling a little bit. Welcome to the Paul Finebaum Show. It is Booger and Burns filling in for said host, Mr. Paul Finebaum. Peter Burns from the SEC Network, studio anchor, alongside just stud, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, LSU Tiger, senior PGA Tour golfer extraordinaire, Booger McFarland, and a man that loves to lay it down music. Who was that we came back in from break with? You even know who that was, Boog?
Yeah, that was the Gap Band. You remember?
That was the Gap Band?
Yes, it's called the Gap Band. That's when Mama and Daddy was making love and music was great. I mean, it was just a good time in our country. And a lot of people that are listening now, regardless of where you're from, regardless of what your ethnicity is, you know what the Gap Band and Charlie Wilson are all about. It's tremendous music. I don't need all that. Watch me whip. Watch me nay. Like, I don't need all that. I need some good music that's going to minister to my soul, man.
But everybody has that CD, right? Everybody has the CD or the tape or the 8-track or the vinyl that was the lay it down CD, right? Like that was it for you. The Gap Band was that CD. Like when that CD came on, like you knew it was game on. Like, hey, is kickoff time's about to happen or what?
Well, listen, it wasn't necessarily game on. It just puts the whole party, or whether it's a party of one or a party of two or a party of many, it puts the whole party in a good mood. It's relaxing music, and a couple things. That music doesn't degrade women. That music is not full of curse words. It's just good music, PB.
I always find it interesting about how the schools now, and we see it with Kevin Sumlin, and his bringing the swag factor back, to Texas A&M. And you see a lot of guys talking about, he's got the swagger copter. You see that a little bit with some of the schools. I damn sure saw it up in Knoxville with the way the branding, with the way the tone is that Butch Jones is setting when I went up there for spring practice, and you just felt like a different vibe. But I was always interested about how the schools allow what schools. What songs they allow, right? Because you go to practice and you're not going to hear the Gap Band at practice.
No, you're not.
You're not going to hear it. And like Mississippi State down in Stark Vegas, when I went down there, they invite all the fans. It was pretty cool. Open practice. You could come out there and watch scrimmage. You get a chance to see Dak Prescott. You get a chance to see De'Runnya Wilson. You got a chance to see Dan Mullen coaching his guys up. And it was funny about, hey, you'd hear. You'd hear a lot of blank spaces, a lot of songs that had been edited out, and I just find it's interesting. And we'll ask Dan Mullen that, I guess, a little bit later when he joins the Paul Finebaum program coming up. Peter Burns filling in along with Booger McFarland for Paul the next couple of days, and we were just talking about the DeAndre Johnson story, and we had the caller, Jim, talking about a Zapruder-like film of he was watching TMZ and how it all went down. But I think the bigger thing you take of this, or I took out of it rather, is what the kid did was despicable. It's absolutely disgusting. No way about it. Deserves to get his butt off the team. That's it. In the conversation. But the deeper conversation for me is what athletes have to deal with now, not just being the big man on campus, but the way, I want to say, the news cycle in sports media and the expectations coming into like SEC Media Day, how much that's changed now, Booger, than it was back when you were playing. Because, without that social media aspect, how has that changed the player perspective and the player experience on a big-time college football program?
Well, first of all, can you stop saying back then like I played in the 70s or something? Dude,
it was old, man. Paul had hair.
I was at LSU.
Had hair when you were playing.
I was at LSU from 95, 98. I graduated in 99, so I'm not that far removed.
Oh, yes. Y'all had America Online. Okay. Yeah, you got the disc from Blockbuster. I got it. It's still
okay.
Okay.
Here's what I will say, though. You're absolutely right with the DeAndre Johnson situation. It's something that cannot, should not, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. But that's not the first time we've seen that. Some of us have seen that a long time ago. It's just that the world, the sports media, people are just starting to take a look at how the sausage is made. And here's what I mean by that. we often want to build our athletes up, and we often choose the most aggressive athlete. We often choose the most aggressive player when they're young. But the aggression can't just be turned off. Like when you're 5 years old or you're 7 and you're starting to learn how to play football, hey, go hit that dummy. Go hit that other player. You're teaching aggression. Well, guess what? When those guys become 18 or 19 years old, they've been taught aggression for the last 15 years. And oftentimes, especially when you involve alcohol, when you involve late nights, it's hard to turn that aggression off. And what happens is, PB, you get situations like with the DeAndre Johnson, and with the advent of the internet, and with the advent of social media and all these different things travel a lot farther, a lot quicker. People talked a lot about Tiger Woods. Well, guess what? Arnold Palmer was thought about to be doing the same things back then. But because of social media, because of the internet, okay, you didn't hear about it as much. Let's not just think that Arnie's Army was just all dudes. Okay, Arnie's Army consisted of a lot of females too. So
they were listening to the Gap Band a lot. Okay,
it's just amazing what's happened now when things can be sent worldwide in a matter of seconds. And on a college campus, you can't do anything because there's always video cameras, there's always security cameras. But PB, I saw things maybe not as vicious as the DeAndre Johnson situation. I saw things that if they would have been made public when I was in college, you would have had the same type of result or the same type of public outcry. It's just that now we're in a different time where everything is instant and everything has to be sent out and everything is video camera. And so I just think it's a different time, and hopefully we can get past these situations.
How did that affect the team? When you saw this guy that got in trouble, got popped, maybe got maybe DWI, but then all of a sudden, hey, a phone call got made or whatnot, or how did that affect the actual team chemistry on did you go, hey, you know what, he's just being an idiot, or did the guys that were doing it the right way get upset in that locker room?
No, guys got upset, okay, because you knew. Here's the thing about it. Even though the public didn't know, the coaches knew, okay? So even though the media didn't know, guess what? Your parents probably knew, because the coach's job when they recruited you was to tell the parents, hey, we're going to take care of your son. And when you get a situation where one of the players gets in trouble on or off campus and the coach knows about it, then guess what? You're going to call the parents and say, hey, Miss McFarland, Anthony got a little bit of trouble. If you happen to hear about it, we're taking care of it. Here's what he did. He's going to call you shortly. And you had to call your mom and tell your mom, hey, you know what? You stayed out late and got arrested for drinking and driving, even though it didn't get reported. Okay, because the college police did the coach a solid and basically called the college coach. So things like that have gone on for the longest time. It's just that back then there was a rapport between the college campus police and maybe the police in town, and they would just call the coach. Well, nowadays they don't call the coach. They call TMZ or Deadspin, and it's everywhere. And so I think from a team standpoint, the teammates knew, and whether the guy had to run and do extra gases or things like that, there was always a camaraderie in the team. Don't let the team down. If you do, we're going to call you out.
And it's a little bit of a different atmosphere of the players that are coming in. We'll talk about that coming up in just a minute. But what Tommy Moffitt, the strength coach of LSU, said yesterday in an interview is pretty jaw-dropping stuff, but I think it's right on with these athletes. We'll take some of those phone calls, too, on the DeAndre Johnson and the way that athletes are being treated right now as well, too, on the Paul Finebaum Show. 855-242-7285. That's 855-242-PAUL. It's Booger and Burns, Peter Burns, Booger McFarland filling in for Paul Finebaum.
Are you looking...
Wednesday edition of the Paul Finebaum Show. It is not Paul Finebaum. It is Peter Burns with the SEC Network, studio anchor, alongside Big Booger McFarland. I wouldn't say big. You're in good shape. You always eat healthy when you're out here in Charlotte. You're looking pretty fit, my friend.
Let's see. You called me old and big. I mean, how many more adjectives are you going to use that kind of make me feel like I'm just an old slob.
I still got you realize I got 3 more hours today and then 2 more days the rest of this week. You buckle up, my friend. You buckle up. 855-242-PAUL is the number. Want to get in with this. We'll get back to those phone lines. Brad in Huntsville, thanks for joining the Paul Finebaum Show. What's going on?
Hey, just piggyback a couple comments off what Booger was talking about the internet and my whole thing. I guess it's a cautionary tale. Career Army guy. I got one son that's in the Army and another one that plays college football out in Washington. All these kids going into these universities now, I mean, they're getting these briefs and conversations and these essentially counseling sessions on how their conduct and behavior should be. And I just think, you kind of, as a 19-year-old, put yourself in a compromising position, knowing what you know. I mean, they're not ignorant to the fact. The second part of it is, and a little bit, I disagree with Booger on this part of it, about the violence part. Yes, I agree. But they're also taught a discipline-controlled application of that violence. And I didn't play college football. I wasn't good enough. I played high school, that was it. But being in the military, it's the same thing. When I take my soldiers downrange, it's a controlled application of violence, and it's not tolerated when you go above and beyond the rules of engagement. And that's kind of, what we're looking at in this situation is, hey, you've got to be able to have that temperance and prudence to pull yourself out of those compromising situations, regardless of your age. I joined the Army when I was 17. So that's the only part I disagree with Booger on. Everything else, totally agree.
Brad, we appreciate the phone call. I mean, Boog, listen, I didn't play college football. I wasn't big like you and strong and smart, but I played college golf, and I played the years that I played, all 4 years we had guys that played on the German national team, on the Swedish national team, and then we also had some Canadians. So the most disciplined players we always had were the Germans. And I always realized that, the reason why is that before they could go to college, they had to spend a year in the Army. No questions, right. unless you were the third-born son, you had to spend a year in the Army. And how grateful those guys were of getting that opportunity to go ahead and play. But I think it's a tough switch to go ahead and turn on and off for any of these guys.
Yeah, and it's just tough, PB, when you get young kids, and then let's not forget, how many times have you seen any of these instances take place in the daytime? So now think about when you put nighttime, you put the club atmosphere, you put this music, and you put alcohol or some type of substance. And when you throw all that together with these young kids and the testosterone that grows through their body, it's no excuses. Okay, that's my philosophy. There are no excuses, but at the same time, we train these young men from day one to be aggressive. Now we have to train them how to control that aggression.
Tommy Moffitt said that, the strength coach. We're going to have that sound a little bit later in the show. But Tommy Moffitt was talking about the leadership of SEC players, not just the LSU Tigers, but just overall. Because let's be honest with you, if you're listening to this show, you know the SEC has been the most dominant force in the history of college football over the last, and what college football has meant. Over the last 15 years, it has been as dominant as any other aspect of any sport. That's just the way it is. And every single year, it gets picked clean because of the talent level that goes to the NFL and how these guys, these younger generation, Booger, are having a hard time answering the bell of leadership as an 18, 19-year-old kid, because you don't see a whole heck of a lot of seniors in the SEC even make it to play their 4 years now.
Yeah, you can't lead at 18. I mean, you're 2 years removed from high school. I mean, you're still think about this. You're still trying to figure out who you are and what your makeup is. So it's very, very tough for a guy that's 2 years removed from sitting in PE to figure out how to be a leader of a football team.
All right, it's something we're going to get into with our next guest coming up on the other side of the top of the hour. Dan Mullen, the head coach of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And I'm very concerned for one major reason. We'll ask Dan Mullen about that. It's the Paul Finebaum Show. Peter Burns, Doug McFarland filling in for Paul.
This is a
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt, frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.